Hello and welcome back to Anna Rose Reads the podcast. I am your host, Anna, and today I am so stoked to be sharing this episode in particular with a very, very near and dear friend of mine. George Dunn joins me to chat about, well, a little bit of everything. This episode is long, long overdue. George has been I've been meaning more importantly, to get George on the podcast for a very long time, and we finally made it happen. So here he is in all of his horror glory. We chat about reviewing and reading and writing critically. And the funny thing about this recording is that it happened over the summer, like earlier this summer. And since this recording, George has actually started a new podcast with his mom, which I absolutely adore. It's called Why Are We Watching This?, in which George introduces his mom to horror films, and they have a very healthy discussion about those films afterwards. It's a really great time. Everybody should be listening to it. It'll be linked in the show notes. So while that is absent from this discussion, just know that had it existed at this time, we would definitely have talked about it. Otherwise, we talk about his reviewing, his other podcast where he interviews authors, The Terrorium, and many other things. So I hope that you all enjoy this one as much as I do. I will catch up with you all after. George, welcome officially, a long overdue guest to Anna Rose Reads the podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing wonderfully. I'm very, very happy to be on what is my favorite podcast as of recently. So thank you for.
You're trying to flatter me, but that's very sweet of you. No, this has been long, long overdue. So I thought, I've been doing all of these like kind of podcaster, interviewer, horror personality, kind of interviews for my Patreon because the Patreon folks were wanting to know a little bit more of like the inside baseball knowledge about what we do. And I was like, there's no better people to talk to than my fellow reviewers and interviewers. And of course, you were at the top of that list. It was just a matter of getting things to work out with our schedules. But yeah, like how the hell are you? What have you been up to? You're in school, so
Yeah, I'm good. It's been a weird kind of 9 months. I started a degree in journalism. So there's been a shift because I used to kind of just churn out book reviews all the time. I've been reading and writing a lot less and kind of been doing a bit more recommending.
hmm.
So I think that kind of thing of being like a horror personality as opposed to a horror reviewer has kind of become probably a better descriptor as of late. But I'm getting back into it. It's all slowing down. And I'm good. I'm not too stressed right now, so we'll take that.
At, at this very moment. Good.
Yeah. How are
Um,
you?
oh, I'm great. This is post Stoker, so if there's a rasp in my voice, that would be why. But no, I don't know how, like, as somebody who's about to also go back to school for a month,
Mhm.
I feel like I have a lot to learn from you in regards to balancing the reading and writing versus doing your schoolwork. But so any pieces of wisdom that you have to offer on that, I'm all ears.
Um, I am very, very bad at it actually. Yeah, I do a lot of drinking as well.
Oh, so fair, so
Yeah,
fair.
that's a good way to do it, depending on how you look at it, maybe.
Yeah.
Lots of Bible. Yeah, I try and turn up most of the time. Um, Yeah, I just keep it going. That's something that's helped. I've been thinking about it, and I'm not looking for vertical growth whilst I'm at school. I'm looking if I can stay consistent, if like, horizontal growth is fine for me. I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. Anything that is, anything I get out there or written or anything that does well on social media is a bonus, an unexpected bonus. I'm just trying to stay afloat, and I think that's a
That's
good way of looking at it.
that is a good way of looking at it, and I support that. But I think my new favorite term now is horizontal growth. Forget the word maintaining. We are horizontal growthing.
Yeah.
But no, that makes sense. And you mentioned that you feel like the recommendation thing is easier than the like reading and reviewing thing. And I know you were you have two things that you do exceptionally well. One is the video format, like the rapid fire recommendations, kind of with, Reels and TikToks, like stuff of that nature, that short form video format. But then you also do the on brand recommendation series, either as children's books, which has been very funny lately, or just, really niche subgenres. And I'm
Mm.
kind of curious why it is that you feel like the recommendations versus the like long form review is a little bit easier, because I have my own thoughts on this, but I'm
Oh.
curious to hear what yours are.
Well, I suppose I find it easier because I have read a lot over the past couple of years, and I keep relatively thorough records in a journal as opposed to Goodreads because I'm not very good at that. But I read a lot and I document it relatively well, and you get to a certain point where you can kind of just plagiarize off of yourself. Is what I've been finding lately, which is nice. Um, so I think. They kind of come to me a bit easier than someone who would just be starting out, I think. But that's the current state of things. And I just find them faster to put together. I do it on Procreate, which I'm sure is not the most efficient way to do it, but I just get all the pictures off Google, chuck them on, and then post it. Whereas, you have to read the book and critically engage with it, which I'm still doing a lot of reading. I just won't review every single book I read if it isn't kind of an arc these days. And I don't know my own thoughts half the time and how to express them. I find that to be more challenging. Normally, there are exceptions, but yeah, I just find that easier to kind of maintain. Whereas I can also schedule them in my head, like the post of
Hmm.
recommendations. Whereas I don't know if a book is going to take me a week to read or if it's going to take me
Yeah.
a day. I can't plan my reviews more than 2 days in advance, really. So, whereas I know that I can churn out some recommendations kind of whenever I need to.
Yeah, that's really fair. And I think that the whole thing on the timeline of like when you'll finish a book is huge, because like I know for me, I have like the best intentions of like finishing a book sometimes, and then it just doesn't happen because life gets in the like will literally get in the way of like logistically it just won't get done. But it's easy whenever you have like an extensive backlog that you can kind of pull off of, like you said. But I'm curious kind of too if you have somewhat of a update on how you find your reading to be this year, kind of like what you've been seeing in the horror genre, what you've really been enjoying, just kind of like a general overview of what 2026 has been, kind of like how it's been treating you, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper from there.
Yeah, well, on a personal level, let me be upfront, it's the worst year of reading I've ever had. Um, Not into, I mean, in terms of volume, I've had some duds as well, but nothing crazy. I've read about 50 books this year, which I appreciate is much higher than the average person, but for me, it's pretty bad. Um, I, what am I thinking in terms of patterns and stuff that I'm seeing this year? I'm trying to look at my shelf. I think the reinvention of tropes, I'm seeing a lot of kind of like fresh takes on things, and sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. But I'm seeing lots of that kind of thing. Maybe the Buffalo Hunter with the vampire has a part to play in that kind of thing we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Nothing else is kind of springing to mind. What have you been noticing, and how's your reading been going?
Oh, well, I'm doing all kinds of weird bullshit this year. Like I quit my day job, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna write fiction, and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to school, and then oh, I have Stoker, and oh, I'm gonna travel, and so like best laid plans and all that good stuff. I think last year I had a really bad slump at the beginning of the year, and then
Yeah,
it
I
kind of
remember.
it picked up towards the end of the year, so I ended up finishing like about like right at 100 books, which is like around-ish where I'm normally at. I'm more on track this year, but I'm not ahead, so it feels like I'm behind, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. There was something that I had noticed, it wasn't a trope, or I think it was more of an idea that we had kind of started to revisit in horror, and of course it's left my mind now that you've asked me and put me on the spot. Why would you do this to me? This is just terrible.
Well, have a taste of your own medicine, Anna. Goodness me.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, it's good. Like, I have read. There have been a lot of surprises for me this year. I think that that's been the thing. Like, I hadn't picked up anything by Laura Simph yet, and a lot of people have been telling me to pick up her stuff, and that's my fault for not listening sooner, I guess. But I just read one from her, Unnamed Bones, that like really rocked my socks off. Like, I really, really enjoyed that. And the other thing too is I do feel like there's kind of a reclamation of tropes, I feel like is maybe.
That's a better word for it, yeah.
Yeah, because like I know, like I'm thinking about the last couple of things that I read, like Worry Box by Chris Panettiere. It's I call it the not haunted house novel because
Mm,
it's its own thing, but it's playing upon like what you would expect of of that trope, you know? And then the same is true for like Tanya Pell's This Bee Just Won't Die. Like
yeah.
you're expecting certain beats for that and she gives them to you, but just like in a very different way than like you would expect in a normal slasher, like and she's dealing with a kind of a whole slew of other conflicts and issues with that, which is I really appreciate because it feels more current. It feels more like of
Yeah.
this time. But yeah, I'm kind of all for like horror getting with the current moment. And I know it's hard because like
Mm.
traditional publishing runs behind,
Oh, yeah.
but I'm all for like getting with the here and now, you know? I don't know if you found that to be true or not.
I think I've always kind of found horror to be reflective of what's going on in the world. I mean, there's a lot of angry books. If we're
Yeah.
being this, I mean, horror's always kind of typically is making a point and is typically political, but I think lots of explicitly angry books is what I'm
Yeah.
reading this year, which is good. I'm enjoying them. That's not a bad thing. But like Paul Tremblay's Dead But Dreaming is couldn't be any more explicitly about AI and absolutely furious about it. And I enjoyed that. And yeah, I just think it's kind of there are a couple of books this year where I've been. It's a bit. I know you haven't read The Dead Zone, much to my upset, but it's a bit Dead Zoney in that it's so obvious. Like you couldn't. There's no
Yeah.
way to avoid the commentary. Um, so yeah, I've been liking that.
Yeah, I've got Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep coming up. Yeah, I do feel like they are always timely in the sense like they're like, oh yeah, I remember whenever we were going through this like reflects that time. But I think that it does feel a little bit like it's speeding up, which I'm all here for.
Mm.
Or maybe just our issues are longer lasting and lingering. That's one of the two, which
Well,
unfortunately that might
indeed.
also be true as well.
Yep.
Um, but I do also, so we're talking about your reading and your reviewing and all that good stuff. But I also want to talk to you about your interviewing because I know that you were very humble about this, but you did crank up a podcast called The Terrorium, but it happened to coincide with you beginning this degree program. So I know it's kind of been a little bit of a off and on thing, but I
Mhm.
love to listen to you talk to people. So I just want to hear what kind of led you to one kind of get on board with the podcasting format and if you miss it at all.
I do. Okay. First of all, I do miss it. I think it's incredibly cool that I'm able to interact with people who I look up to. Especially, when they're across the pond, as lots and lots of them are.
Hmm.
I will say, I found that since stopping the podcast and starting at school, I very much prefer being on other people's podcasts, like Leech and a Barnacle, because it requires very little work from me after the hour and a half. So I do miss it. I might start it back up again over summer because I have about 2 months off. But we shall see. In terms of what led me to, it's actually your fault in
Oh
that
God.
we both reviewed for Fanfi Addict for a while. And the very first interview I did was Gallery reached out and were like, "Would you like to interview Nick Cutter for the Queen?" And you went, "George will," and I was kind of like, "Okay, I guess
Yeah.
I'm doing that." So I just did that on YouTube and released it that way. And then I very sporadically did some more, and I think I just had a particularly interesting interview with, I think it was Lee Radford, and I was like, well, I may as well. I've got the audio anyway. I may as well kind of see what I can do to stick it up on Spotify, etc. And then that lasted about 2 months before I stopped. But I had fun whilst it was going. I posted one, no, two this year. At the start of this year over Christmas, one with Brian Raftery, who wrote
Mm.
the fictitious biography of Hannibal Lecter, which was very nerdy. And then I did a solo episode about the the subgenres to try and distract people from the fact I wasn't doing them anymore. Um, so yes, it's slow on the podcast front. It's your fault I started it, and yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that now that you bring it up. But no, but I think I appreciate the way that you read stuff. I do think that we read in a similar closeness, but you do bring a different perspective to the table that I really enjoy hearing you talk about. And I of course love your reviews. I mean, they are very you always they're very witty. I'm always very, very impressed by your wit, but hearing you talk to people too is also really enjoyable. But yeah, I get where it's nicer to not to be the one furnishing the
Yeah.
conversation and making sure that it keeps rolling because it can be a lot at times. I certainly
I
know that.
think Emily Hughes called herself a podcast barnacle when we went on Neil's State of
Yeah.
the Horror Nation. I've just been throwing around that term about myself ever since. I think it's great, and I'm happy to be one. So thank you for allowing that today.
Oh, literally anytime. I mean, listen, I love to bring, I'm starting to really love bringing friends on here. Like it's great to talk to authors, but it's also really nice to have friends on here too. Because and I say that like as a joke because it's obvious the conversation is a little bit easier because some of the nerves aren't there, like there's
Yeah.
a little bit of that. But genuinely though, like I think sometimes we forget when we're friends with people other than just being like, oh, I read that and I liked it.
Mm.
Sometimes like the ability to have a genuine like uh deep conversation about a book is a little bit harder on like the day to day unless you do shit like this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'll just message you and be like, "Hey, did you get through this?" And you're like, "Yeah, it was great. I hope you enjoy it." And we're on to
Yeah.
the next.
Well, I also think that what was I even going to say? Oh yeah, that the kind of conversations we're having, we could for sure have just without sharing with the world, like over Zoom with a cocktail, maybe. That's fine. But
Yeah.
I think when you reach a certain level of success in podcasting, like you have, I feel like people will listen to kind of any interesting conversation about a book that you're having. I don't think they necessarily, well, they probably don't know who I am, and I don't think they need to, as long as it's a good chat about a book.
Yeah, very fair. And you're one of the people I was literally talking to Emily about this the other day. It's like you were one of the people who reads very widely and diversely, and like there's nothing that I feel like you're not afraid to like try anything in horror, to whereas I'm still a little bit of a weenie on some things. So I very much trust your judgment on the things that I'm too scared to get to. Because you will read the extreme horror or a little bit more of the more intense
Yeah.
body horror stuff. Um, do you ever feel like have you ever felt like something was too much? I don't know that we've ever had this conversation.
Um, I think I find there to be. I've written about this a couple of times because there was a phase where I read a couple of extreme horror books back to back and then got asked about it in like every interview I did.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think it serves its purpose. I need to know what I'm getting into, I think.
yeah.
But if I want something that's gross and disturbing and cathartic, because a bunch of the nastiest things that tend to happen in extreme horror happen to the terrible people,
Mhm.
which makes it a lot easier to stomach.
That's a good
That
point.
that has its place for me personally in my reading. I don't think I'd throw around recommendations willy-nilly um, that way because that's a bit dangerous. But I think
Yeah.
if you're with the knowledge of what it's going to be stepping into an extreme horror book, I think that can be great. There's a book you might have heard of Dollface by R.J. Powell, which has a really cute little cherry with a smiley face on the cover.
Yeah.
And that
Okay.
is a disgusting book, and it's really gross, and it doesn't really have any kind of limits and boundaries to it. But it's okay because it's all happening to a horrible, horrible man, and I think that's fine. I don't think I've ever not finished anything because it's been too intense. But I'm a bit of an edgelord in that way. I'm kind of too proud. So
No, so
maybe
fair.
not.
So fair. And you said something that I really want to talk about too, because this is something that I think about a lot, and it's kind of like the responsibility of recommendations. And I mean, I
Mm,
know that you were saying it more so in regards to extreme horror, but even in horror, with any kind of horror in general, I feel like we're at an interesting like focal point, like maybe a turning point in horror about recommending stuff because I less I find like it's getting harder and harder for me to talk about like actually summarizing a book and like what happens in the book. Rather, I just find that I talk about like how it made me feel. And I don't
yeah.
know if that's helpful or not. I don't know if people want to know like the synopses or the summary or if it's better to talk about how it feels. But like the longer that I've been doing this, that's the thing that sticks out to me more is it's not so much here's the back copy summary of it. It's more like, oh my God, this book made me think about this, this, and this. And I'm
Mm.
curious if you've had that experience too, or like how your relationship maybe has changed with recommending and reading when you first began this kind of like towards now, you know?
Yeah, well, when I first began, I there was about a year before I started writing for Fanfi, which I mean, I barely filled my Instagram captions. I wasn't particularly nuanced, and
I
it
think
was
we had to bully you to get on Instagram, if I remember correctly.
I think that was Twitter in the end. I had
Oh, it was one
Instagram
of them.
before I was on that, and I'm no longer on Twitter, so it didn't work. Um,
Well, I mean, neither am I, so fair.
um, but um. So when I first started reviewing it, it's kind of exclusively about how it made me feel as opposed to anything else because I wasn't really doing it for anyone else. Many people weren't seeing it, so it didn't really matter. Um, and then when I started doing it in I say more professional, still not very professional, but in a slightly more put together way. I do provide my own synopses still because I think I don't spoil anything, I hope. I just kind of more emphasize the parts that I want to go on to speak about.
Hmm.
But when I do go onto those bits, I very much it's all about how I feel, pretty much. I can only talk about my own interpretation and experience with the book at the end of the day. Um, and I like to do that. I used to do it far too honestly. I'm sure you remember the Ramsey Campbell debacle. I'm a bit nicer these days.
How could
Hard
I have
lessons
forgotten?
learned.
Oh my God.
Yes. I no longer like finish books that I don't like, and I don't
Hmm.
review books that I don't finish. So my average rating is skyrocketed from like 2 years
Yeah.
ago. Um, and yeah, I write exclusively about pretty much about how I feel about books, and that's all you can really do, I think, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I do feel like I used to lean on the synopsis part like fairly easily because those are like the facts, and I was like, I don't know how to write about how I feel yet. But the
Mm.
longer I've done this, I feel like it's swapped. Like I still sometimes I still provide the synopsis. Sometimes I'm just like swipe to see what this book's about. But it's one of those things that I feel like once you get the vocabulary to talk about a book in a meaningful way, it's hard to go back to like just the facts. I feel like sometimes, once you learn how to dig down deep in a way. But yeah, it's always interesting too. And I don't mean to be like controversial whenever I ask this, but like a lot of people are of the opinion that you still need to review books that you didn't care for. And I think I don't know if I agree with that. Like, 'cause I like talking and promoting the things that do work for me because I know that I'm bringing my best foot forward whenever I
Mm.
do that. And like books cannot work for you for a multitude of personal
Yeah.
reasons. And like that's not the author's fault, and that's not gonna happen for anybody else maybe other than you, you know? I don't know. Like it's kind of a catch-22 situation. I'm curious how you feel about that.
I don't I won't judge people who go on to review books that they didn't like. I'm not a fan of what I was doing like 2 years ago, which is kind of being I would like to maintain that I was providing genuine criticism, but perhaps the phrasing could have differed. But I think that's fine if done respectfully. For me, I've realized particularly this year because I've been a lot busier, is why bother? What's the what? Like
Hmm.
I don't have time to finish books that I'm not vibing with. Never mind proceed to write up a review about them. I just think that the time that I do have for this side project is much better spent talking about the books I do like. I never ever have understood ever the like the worst books of the year lists. I think those are so
Yeah.
because I mean to write a negative review when you come across a book you didn't like makes sense, but to then reflect on those books you didn't like at the end of the year is a complete waste of time and is just going to make everyone sad and annoyed. So I don't get that. I don't mind a well-written negative review. I think they can
Yeah.
work. And I also, when I was doing my niche subgenres, for example, it was a balance in finding books like a subgenre that is niche, but also, I want at least kind of 12 books a slide, so not that niche. Um, And to the point where if any book is fitting it, I'm putting it on the damn slide. So I didn't really care for Nathan Ballingwood's Crypt of the Moon Spider, but if I was doing like a lunar horror sci-fi like techno thing, I'd put it on there because there is an audience for that book, and it's doesn't matter really in that context if whether I liked it or not.
Yeah, well, it's such a different, there's such a different thing as in doing the niche recommendation thing
That's true.
and then the reviewing thing because I do agree. Like I think, I agree that a quote unquote negative review can still be helpful in a book finding its audience. But I am also with you in like there's only so many hours in the day. I would rather focus my attention on the things that I do enjoy and I do finish and all that good stuff. There is room for critical analysis and commentary and all that good stuff. I'm a huge proponent of that, obviously. But again, it's just one of those things that it's a little bit harder for me to justify in a review setting whenever there's so much else that's going on. And I
Yeah.
think, the thing too is like what you do exceptionally well is one, you get creative with the niche subgenres and the the humor in it, and that helps a lot too in making horror feel accessible, and in a way, I think it opens a lot of doors for people who maybe see like one book. If they are fans of Crypt of the Moon Spider and they want more of that thing, they can look at that slide and see all these other ones. Um, but is it hard for you to like kind of keep coming up with all of these like niche things, or is it just like you like do you keep a running list when they come to you and once you hit like 12, you're like, yeah, good to go. I'll make a slide on that, you know?
Yeah. Well, when I was doing the like this that series specifically with the niche subgenres, yeah, especially towards the end, which is why I stopped.
Yeah.
It's the only reason I stopped. It's the best performing stuff that I've ever done. So there is still inspiration there. I would still be doing it, but
Yeah.
not necessarily to start. The first one that came to mind was I was thinking about I hadn't done a carousel for a while. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to do cosmic? Am I going to do? And I was thinking about folk horror,
Mm.
and this isn't a criticism of people who post like folk horror slides because there's so much folk horror that you can like no two are the same. And that it was that kind of thought that I was like, well, what about subgenres within the subgenre of folk horror? So neo folk was the first one I came up with, which is like The Changeling and Ghost War by Sarah Moss. Like, it has a bit of an urban texture to it, but it's still folk horror. And those kind of things, that kind of thinking, I like to like get as far into a thought. Not an eloquent way to put that, but I keep digging. I'm a bit of an overthinker, is actually the way to describe it. So I just kept overthinking things and write a niche subgenre. Um, so yeah, sometimes some of them came really easy. Some of them are better than others, and that they didn't come easily that week. In terms of kind of niche recommending in general, even outside of that, some of them just kind of come naturally. I feel like all of my ideas come at once, and I kind of
Yeah.
just like I'm just like right, that's it, and then I start working on it. But yeah, there are times where I have no idea what I'm going to post. I keep it. I do have a notes page on my in my phone about potential posts that I could do coming up that I just add to when they come to me. Some of them don't work when I try and execute them, but yes.
It's really funny to me because like your latest thing that you've started doing is these quote unquote children's book recommendations where you essentially annihilate a well-loved children's book and provide a horror recommendation instead
Hmm.
and why it's superior. This is all very tongue-in-cheek if listeners can't tell. But
Oh,
it's
they can't.
absolutely
I've been getting ridiculous.
I know.
Have I told you that someone has suggested I be sterilized in my comments recently? Because that's the latest. And I was like, there's
I
missing the joke, and then there's being mean, and that's mean.
I knew
Um,
you had been getting some shit, but I didn't realize it had gone like that
oh,
far.
some really aggressive people in on Instagram. Um, yeah. Sorry, do
Yeah.
carry on.
No, no, no. That kind of makes my point. But I think I really love when people can combine the fun, humor, and all of this, especially with horror, because I think, like I said, I think it makes it more accessible. I think people have an idea of what horror is versus what it actually is. And not to say that all horror is fucking hilarious. I mean, a lot of it's really,
Yeah.
really harrowing, and but finding the way to comp it in a way like in a vocabulary that the normal person can understand is really, really important. But you'll like you messaged me and you're like, I don't know if this is a good idea. And you said it, and then like I was on the fucking floor laughing about the kids' rights thing. So I do kind of want to talk a little bit because I suffer from this too. Is like the testing the waters of if something's a good idea sometimes stresses me the fuck out. Like I will have ideas for a piece or something that I want to write or like something I want to dedicate some time to. And just sometimes it feels like the stupidest thing and then it ends up working out really well. And then there's also like a divide, I think, between like what people want, like our peers want, and like versus what's like kind of being accepted by like the greater, grander, like more official channels. And I'm just very confused by the whole thing. And you and I have talked about this a little bit, but like, how do you gauge whether or not you feel good about something? That's such a big question because it's hard, right? Like we're
Yeah.
not, it's just you and yourself that's doing this. I mean, like you don't
Hmm.
have a board that this goes before and they vote yay or nay.
Well, you are my board. I
Yeah.
mostly no. Um, I think well, I don't come from a particularly beyond my GCSEs, which are exams you do at 16. I've never studied literature,
Hmm.
beyond
Same.
kind of what you have to do. So I'm not approaching it from a particularly academic angle.
Yeah, me either.
Obviously reading into it myself, but me myself, the layman. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I just think about how I would like to be sold books and ways to recommend things. That's my thing. That if I was being really superior about myself, I like to think that I enjoy analyzing the art of recommendation and like different ways to do it because I've been doing stuff like I've been experimenting for ages with I did like a series of recommendations by phobia and a series of
Hmm.
I did one about senses which was didn't really work but fine. I did like by horror for when you need to cry, for when you need to laugh, that kind of thing. And I think that's really interesting. Um, I and I just think that that's kind of how it makes sense to recommend books to people who, like me, aren't coming at this from the angle of, oh, well, this is a postmodernism, I'm not categorizing things like that.
Yeah.
Um, just really breaking it down into its simplest thing, and that's the kind of, yeah, basically the way I would like to be sold books is kind of what I try to do, um, to differing degrees of success. But yes.
No, that makes sense. And I
And then
do
I ask
think,
you,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, we both ask each other. I think it's one of those things that like I mean, much like you, it's like, how would I want to be talked to about this book? Like, what would make me want to reach out and grab it? And it's that kind of normal conversation that moves the needle. I think like going super, no offense to the academics in the room, but like going super academic is not going to be accessible to everybody.
yeah,
Going super like, just, like if it's just quote unquote book talk recommendations, like we got to break the mold of that because it's just that's an echo chamber in and of itself. So
indeed.
I think the origin it's a fine line of like originality versus being accessible and speaking in a way that people understand. And I think that is an art because I think that it's never been harder to like kind of communicate with one another in today's day and age.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you something else though. You started this degree program in journalism.
Hmm.
Do you feel like your journalism studies have changed the way that you read or you write or you do anything that you do in this book sphere compared to whenever you started?
Um, I mean, technically from a kind of SEO perspective and stuff, I've heard endless things about SEO. It's so boring. But I do kind of think about that a little bit when I'm posting things now. I mean, I'm not really trying to explode. It's not about the numbers, but I'm kind of like, well, maybe this might do a little bit better if I put this word in here. Um, Beyond that, not really, because I found actually that my writing reviews, etc., made my degree harder at first.
Mm.
In that, you get there, and I'm this first year we've just kind of had to act as reporters. We've not really specialized in anything. So maybe in later years there'll be an opportunity to kind of write in a similar way that I do online. But it's been very stripped back. Like in your introduction, you want to get across the point of the story in as few words as possible, in the most plain language you possibly can, because people don't read past the first three paragraphs if you're generous. So you need to convey all of the information crystal clear, no bells and whistles. And I specialize in bells and whistles when I'm writing. I have written sentences that are a paragraph. So they didn't like that, and I had to kind of train myself out of it a bit. I found this is completely unrelated, kind of, but I found the other day I had a shorthand exam coming up.
Yeah, yeah,
For people who don't know, it's like hieroglyphics.
yeah. It's like symbols and shit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm writing at 100 words per minute when I'm listening to people. And I had an exam coming up, so I was a bit stressed about it. I was doing lots and lots of practice. And I try and settle into bed and I'm trying to read. And as I'm reading, I'm trying to process it in shorthand, which is a good way to revise, but I'm not doing it on purpose. I genuinely just have these symbols flashing through my head as I'm processing these words. And I found that very difficult, but that doesn't really impact anything. So that's just a nice
No,
little anecdote for
no,
you.
I think it does impact things because it changes the way that you think about your like how you process and how you think about the words before you. But no, you make a good point about the whole personality of it. And like I kind of have this like chicken or the egg thought process on that. Like,
Mm.
is it that people are not reading anymore because we're so fucking sanitized and like drab? I mean, and like I know probably not. But I would like to think that people would be more excited about reading whenever it's funny and there's personality and there's like the old razzle dazzle, you know? I mean, we talked about this the other day. Like, we've both written for places where we are not edited, where we get free reign to do whatever we want. And now,
Yeah.
we've both written for places where we are edited. And
Mm.
that has been a very interesting experience for the both of us. Um, I don't know. I feel like the best version of us is somewhere in the middle of those two
I would
mediums.
agree.
But yeah, no, I mean, I personally like, and it's probably biased because like I tend to know the people that I'm reading whenever they have the pizzazz that they do. But yeah, I mean, I kind of tend to wonder if we're kind of creating our own reading crisis. Have you ever thought about that?
Kind of. I get it in regards to my journalism. Depending on what I'm writing about, obviously, you're allowed the odd pun if it's a funny story. Um, but I've written about like crumbling school buildings, etc. And I get it. It's not meant to be funny, so that's fine. But I suppose, but I mean, in terms of criticism, I'm trying. One of my resolutions for this year is to get some more kind of listicles and words out to other places, and I've only really started to make an effort in the past kind of couple of weeks. So you've not seen much, but I'm not submitting to the New York Times and the Guardian because we're not going to get on. We don't
Yeah.
have compatible styles. I mean, you can edit me, but you can try. But it's never going to be a New York Times sort of style unless I really go about trying to write one in that way, and I'm not going to do that. So,
That's so fair. So
yeah, I
fair.
think maybe there's a bit of a high horse in kind of criticism higher up the ladder. And maybe I get that, the people who are reading the New York Times book review are smart generally. Um, and looking for that kind of, looking to be enwizened and get something out of it. But it doesn't need to be maybe as stuffy as it is sometimes. If it's,
Hmm.
if it's about entertainment, I think it should be entertaining. But
Yeah.
to each their own. I think maybe you're right about that. There is a little bit of a self-inflicted uh, drought in terms of fun. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that it might be a little bit. I mean, and who am I to say? But no, it's funny because like I've worked with like some really great people who are editing me and like their suggestions and like I've never realized how closely I repeat words until it's been pointed out to me. Like the my go-to things and like I get that that's the point of an editor, and it's made me such a better writer because I'm so much more cognizant of it. But like in other publications, like I've just been like, I just don't agree on what you want me to do with this. Much like you were saying about like some of the places that, people will be like, well, why don't you submit to whatever? And like, no, it's not the venue for like what we're hoping to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally get it. It's a fine line to walk, but it's been
It
it's
is.
been it's been interesting. Going from free range chicken to very
Caged
domesticated.
hen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Um, so and then I guess it kind of brings me to my next and final-ish point. Do you feel like I don't know that I've ever like really asked you this, but like with the journalism thing that you're doing, are you hoping to apply that to your horror criticism and commentary, or is this, like what's the goal for George these days?
George doesn't know what he's doing, so
So fair.
I've learned this semester for myself that I don't want to be a reporter.
Hmm.
I don't like accosting people on the street to ask them what they think about transport. I find the writing of it to be dull and staccato and sharp. So yeah, I mean, in terms of where I'm going to end up post degree, I don't know. It could be PR. It could. I don't know how easy it is to make a living full time off of criticism is my thing. Because if I could, I
Yeah.
would. Um, so we'll see where I end up. I would love to apply some skills that I learned to writing criticism. Maybe one day I will set about writing a New York Times book review to submit to them, but it's not that day yet. Yeah, I definitely, I mean, if I have the skills that I'm learning and paying an extortionate amount of money to have learned, then I will apply it wherever possible.
Very
Yeah,
fair.
I mean, I don't know what I'm doing in terms of my degree or in terms of the book stuff. I'm just saying yes to every opportunity that is presented to me and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I think you and I are in the same boat with that right now. And
Yeah,
I think that you and I are both like in the we'll see whenever it happens kind of
yeah. Well,
stage of the game.
if this is something that we can make money off of, then I'll take the money.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm doing it for the love of the game mostly.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not yeah, I'm optimistic-ish as much as a British person possibly can be.
I was about to say, I know that's hard for y'all.
Yeah.
Very fair. And then, we've talked about this very briefly before, but do you have any interest at all in writing fiction? And the only reason that I ask that is because your critical writing is so full of personality. I have wondered what your fiction would look like because I imagine it would be full of some of the same stuff, but I also know like the two things are very, very different. Like the way
Mm.
that I write fiction is not the way that I write criticism. So,
Yeah.
I'm always a little curious.
I like to think I don't have a current interest in writing fiction in that I have come up with ideas like everyone else, like concepts, like pitches, and I've been like, oh, okay, let me sit, let me, cool. And I'm just like, wait, what is it actually about beyond the
Yeah.
concept? I'd struggle to get beyond that, and I don't think I have the imagination to do so. So I like to think that I exercise those thoughts by kind of writing in a way that is sometimes a bit prose-like. Um, but sometimes is a bit creative, sometimes whatever. Um, when I published my King's Sorrow review, Joe Hill was very nice in like sharing it on Threads and said that it was, beautifully written and whatever. And I shared it and was like, oh guys, look, Joe Hill thinks I'm a good writer. And then I got like an onslaught of DMs telling me that I must write fiction now because Joe Hill says so. And I refuse still. I don't think that I think there's, like you say, there's a huge gap between
Yeah.
someone's ability to write a review and someone's ability to write fiction. I would give it a go if I had a fully fledged plot in front of me,
Hmm.
but I've never had one of those. So
Yeah. No, I
maybe the
get
day will
that.
come. I'm not, I'm young. Maybe who knows what the future holds, but not for now. It's not in the works.
Yeah. No, it's funny that you bring up the age thing, and I'll get back to that in a second. But yeah, no,
Mhm.
I even kind of deluded myself like into thinking that I knew the thing that I'm working on now. I was like, oh yeah, I know where that's gonna go, and then it's changed like 5 or 6 times, and then like I still like I think I know how it's gonna end, but it when until you like sit down to write the thing, it you don't it's completely up in the air. Like it's totally. So, it's one of those things that I think that you just kind of have to get to a point where like the initial idea is strong enough that you're like, I'll just figure it out as I go. Like it's too strong not to. Or at
Yeah,
least for me, that's how it's been because I too was like, I have to wait until I have the fully formed like A to B to C to D to E kind of thing. And it's unfortunate I did, and then unfortunately it changed so much that it
Mhm.
ended up not being relevant at all.
Yeah, but
But it's really funny that you bring up the young thing, the age thing, because I'm sure that you saw on Instagram. I had a crash out at Stoker
yes.
on the Saturday night because I was sitting next to, I'm not gonna say who it was, but I was sitting next to some people at dinner and they made a comment about something I did this and this when I was this old. And I said, "What?" Because it was not the age that I thought
Mm.
that that person was. And then I don't know why, but it just like broke my fucking brain. And I was like, there is a way bigger age gap between me and like and then so I started asking everybody, I'm like, how old are you again? And then I learned that I am so much younger. And I'm like, I think the thing of it is it makes me feel really stupid. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
I'm gonna be like 27 and I'm gonna go and do this, and this. Like, no, you punk idiot. You have so much to learn still. Sit down. I
Yeah.
don't know if you feel the same or how your relationship with your age and being in this community has been, but I think that was why I had the crash. I was like, God, you entitled asshole.
Yeah, well, I mean, 100%. I mean, I get comments as it is saying that, like, because I like to go a little bit bigger with my carousels. am perfectly okay with people who do one book per thing. I like to do around 15
Yeah.
per side, which I just like to get it all out all at once. And I get comments anyway that are like, you haven't read all of these books. Meh, 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 meh. I have, but anyway, don't tell them that I am born this millennia, because I don't think that would help my case.
No,
I
no.
yeah, I feel. I mean, that said, it's a very welcoming community. I feel
Oh
immediately
yeah.
in terms of our peers and stuff. I've been given the chance to go on Talking Scared with you and various other podcasts that I very much admire. And my age is never, I review for a site. I've sold some pieces of criticism to other places, and my age hasn't stopped any of that. So it's not
No.
like a physical barricade or anything like that. But yeah, I get imposter syndrome that I feel is enhanced by my youth.
No, no, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. You just put words to it. It's the imposter syndrome of the youth because it's like one of those things where you think like, oh, like I'm prepared to do this and like I have something to say and wisdom to say, and then I'm just like, I don't know that I do actually. I've not put in the time that these people have and the work and the experience. So I don't know.
Well,
It's a weird thing. And again, never once has it been the community. It's always been just been me being
yeah.
me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yesterday Ed and Charlie were like, "Oh, you're like four. You were you were born in like 2019." And it's like,
Uh,
stop. This is actually a very complex thing that's going on in my head, and you're not helping, actually.
Yeah, and it will give you a crash out
Yeah.
randomly on a Saturday night after you've had some fireball and you hear an age that you weren't prepared to hear. Which also goes to say that everybody just looks so young and youthful in our community.
Yes,
They're all glorious, glamorous people. But
indeed.
anyway, I digress. Oh, George. Well, this has been delightful. We are getting close to an hour, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But what can I promote for you, my dear friend? I mean, I know like you're very active on Instagram, you're reviewing. But like, are those the only things that you've got going on right now, or is there something else that we can shout out for you?
Those are kind of the only avenues. I mean, anything additional that happens, I make sure I tell everyone on the Instagram.
Yeah.
So, that'll do. I'm at George's Reads on kind of every platform, TikTok and Instagram mostly, also Threads, Blue Sky, Substack, all of the
Yeah.
above. Um, yeah, I mean that's about it. I wrote an article for Phantasmag the other day about liminal books inspired by the Backrooms. House of Leaves is not on it. Don't be mean to me about it, please. Um, yeah.
I love that
There's
disclaimer.
that. If you want to read that, that would help. Yeah, that's all I
Right.
got.
Right on. No, I love your House of Leaves disclaimer. Well, I'm very grateful, my friend, that you one gave me your time and two, I think a lot of people appreciate kind of a peel behind the curtain into what goes on with the reviewing side of things and like how, we're keeping up with the genre or trying to keep up with the genre because
Mm.
there's so many books and we can't get to all of them, but we do make a good attempt. So it's nice to kind of talk shop a little bit in a way that's accessible for other people to hear, what goes on behind the great curtain.
Oh, it's just pure chaos. I'm sure
Yeah.
everyone's concerned and disappointed. But thank you very much for having me, to concern and disappoint your lovely Patreon subscribers. And
Oh,
well done. You're in the right place.
thank you, George. I appreciate you.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Another very big heartfelt thank you to George for coming on the show. Again, this episode is so overdue, so I'm so glad that we could make it happen. Again, his new podcast is Why Are You Making Me Watch This? It is an absolute treat and a delight So please, everyone, go check out the links that I have in the show notes. Go give it a listen. It is such a good time. And also keep up with George. Read his reviews. I love the way that George writes. It's so full of personality, and as we discussed, it's a very fun time to read George's critical writing. Keep up with him on social media, and yeah, just support George, man. George is a good one, and I am so thankful to call him a friend. Thank you all so much for listening this week, and I will see you all on social media.